And we are live. Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is the Gaming Perspective, episode 14, because E3 was just all special edition, so I'd go find the episode number. So we're on episode 14 of the Gaming Perspective podcast. We are short Mr. Eric Jackson tonight, so I'll introduce our panel quickly. I've got Mr. Samuel Tolbert.
Hey, guys. How's it going? It's been a little while. Really glad to be back, though.
Right on, right on. And Jared?
Hey everybody, glad to be here, back on the Game Perspective after a couple weeks. Let's get talking.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about Game of the Week here. So every month or every week, one member of the panel is going to be in charge of coming up with a Game of the Week, whether it's a new game, old game, or anything along those lines. Just something people should play. I was going to do Nier Automata for mine. I haven't had a chance to actually dive into the game, unfortunately, because of time restraints. So for mine, I'm going to use it's on sale right now on Steam, and literally any PC can run this. Literally anything. If you got a 5-year-old laptop, it'll run it. Baldur's Gate 2, the definitive edition. It comes with the base game and all the expansions, which ends up being like a 200-hour RPG fest. And it's Dungeons and Dragons style gameplay. It's absolutely amazing. I think I've beaten it like 5 times in my lifetime. I've played this game way too much, but it's literally like $3 on the Steam sale right now. So go check that out if you like any form of RPG. And it's really unique, and I love the difficulty settings. There's literally a what's considered the super hard difficulty setting, where all the enemies do 200% damage, and there's like permadeath for all characters. So if you lose a character, you lose that character for good, and there's a limited amount of party members you can find throughout the game. So it adds a certain level of challenge to it, on top of the already challenge of 200% increased damage and whatnot. But it's a really, really great game. Some people might have played it way back in the day, but I don't know if there was ever console adaptations of Baldur's Gate. I think there was a couple. I think I vaguely remember something on the GameCube or something. But yeah, that's
the GameCube, the original Xbox, and the PS2 actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But they were serious, like they were spin-offs. They were like there was a hack and slash spin-off done by Snowblind Studios. Then there was and so that's what the consoles got. So not the games proper. If that makes sense.
So they did like spin-off games for console.
Right, exactly.
Okay, that's kind of cool. I never knew that. I only ever played the ones on PC. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely pick it up. Like I said, the specs required to play it are like nothing. Literally, it basically requires you to have a video card from the past 20 years and a sound card. Like it literally just says a sound card in the system requirements. So yeah, go pick that up for $3 and definitely give her a spin. So next week we will get Eric to do the Game of the Week because he's not here to say no.
Nice.
All right. So we'll see what he comes up with for next week. So we'll dive right into this because this is going to be this first topic might take us a bit here. So Google kind of leaked. I'm going to say leaked because it's apparently an employee at Google that Google plans to bring a console into the video game industry to rival Xbox and PlayStation. Now, before we dive into the factors of that, how do you guys feel about Google trying to enter the console space? Because there's a lot of mixed feelings about Google as a company. So I kind of want to get everyone's vibes on how you feel about them entering the video game space.
I don't know. I'm curious. I'm always up for more potential, I guess, gaming quality out there. I don't know how else to really put it, but if they really want to get serious into the console marketplace, they have to put out something pretty serious. So that's kind of got me intrigued.
I agree. It's interesting because Google definitely is one of the companies that can just go, let's try this video game console thing.
Yeah. They're not really afraid to try something and know that if they fail, they still have the financial backing to stay on their feet, sort of thing.
Sam, what about yourself? What do you think? Google in a video game console?
So I have a lot of very, very, very mixed opinions about it, but at the core, I'll say that competition is always a great thing. I have yet to be proven to have it proved to me that competition, particularly within the video game industry, has at some point been a bad thing. Cooperation is great, but competition is often greater because without competition, you don't get things like companies copying each other for great features and services, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, but it's a lot more complicated than that. So when we start breaking these things down, I'll explain what I mean there.
Okay, so let's just dive in. We'll do a little bit of a history thing for some people too. This isn't the first time a big company sat there and went, you know what? We can make a video game console. It'll be easy. Just toss a bunch of games on and call it a day. Anyone remember the Apple video game console? Anybody?
No.
Nope.
Actually don't know. I
do. I know
successful it was.
I can't remember the exact name, but literally it was one of the biggest flops in video game history. It was the most awkward looking thing in the world.
You're talking about the Pippin.
Yeah, the Pippin.
What? That's what it's called?
Oh, yeah. The Pippin.
The Pippin? Mm-hmm. We're not going to Mordor.
It went to Mordor. It just never made it back is the problem. But, yeah, Apple tried to make a video game console at one point. I guess, would you consider the NVIDIA Shield technically a video game console? I wouldn't really. It's more of a streaming device than anything else. But that's kind of what Google said they might be leaning towards as well, as like a streaming box.
What you call a set-top box.
Yeah.
Or a micro console, rather.
Yeah.
Like, it's not... It's doing things that already exist, but in a very different way.
Yeah. Anyone remember the Ouya?
Yeah.
Ouya influencers in the room? I know that's still in Ivan's Twitter profile. But yeah, so the big companies have tried to dive into the video game industry. It's hard to break into this industry because one of the main things I think that makes it hard for these companies to just break into the video game industry is there's a lot of trust that's been built up over the years with these console manufacturers. Like Sony and Nintendo have been in this industry for decades at this point. And there's a certain standard everyone knows that they will bring. Even in the PS3's bad era and even with the Wii U, you knew that they would eventually step it back up to where they had it before. Mm-hmm. And even with Xbox, like with the OG Xbox, they worked hard. They spent a lot of money to get that console into people's homes. It wasn't the best-selling console of that generation by any means, but they built a lot of trust with that console, which led to the success of the Xbox 360. The PS3's failures also helped the 360 in the long run. But it took a while for Xbox to be able to wiggle themselves into that space. And we saw, companies like Sega with like the Genesis and everything else, and like you see the Dreamcast and everything else. Like, it's not always a guarantee. Like, Sega went from one of the biggest video game console like developers to they're just basically a publishing studio now. So it's definitely a very finicky industry, and it's really hard to gain consumers' trust. Add into the fact it's got the Google name on it, and there is a lot of people that distrust Google. Like let's face it, YouTube in itself, which this show is on, demonetize me now, is owned by Google, and we all have seen what Google has done to YouTube in the long haul. Is it horrible?
And it's one of the products that they've still got going. Let's not talk about... I mean, Google has a graveyard of abandoned initiatives that they poured money into. Decent money, oftentimes. And then we're like, meh, a year and a half, 2, 3, 4 years later. Yeah, anyone remember Google Glasses? Or Google RSS Reader?
Yep.
Things I wish were reality, but aren't now because it just dropped the support.
And see, I think that's the biggest uphill battle Google's going to have with a video game console is the fact that if they can't just drop the console. Like, you can't have it out for 2 years, and if it doesn't hit your standards, like, oh, well, we're just not going to support it anymore. Mm-hmm. That would seriously burn out any chance they have. And like we talk about, like, in gaming social media, we talk about the struggle that Xbox had with its first party. and they still had first party studios, but there's gaps. Google has nothing. They literally have to build everything from the ground up.
That's true.
What do you guys think? Like if you were at Google and you had a blank check, how would you start moving this console?
Oh man.
Well, okay, so if I had a blank check, if there was not a limit to the money that I would realistically be willing to spend, I would aggressively take a loss on the most powerful console you could put together. Okay, just the most powerful one, theoretically possible, while simultaneously offering a streaming service. Basically, what we think Microsoft is actually going to do for next gen, except try to beat them to the punch on it. And I'm not sure how realistic this is but again, we're throwing conjecture out there, right? That's the point. This is a think piece, a think tank, if you will. So from there on, you would start courting developers. You would see who wants to be bought. But the problem is, and this is something we've talked about before in terms of Microsoft buying studios, there aren't a lot of independent developers out there of considerable size anymore. The vast majority have been purchased or acquired, or just aren't willing to be purchased or acquired. So what Google would best be served by is actually developing their own studios and hiring staff, offering aggressive wages. The problem there that we would run into, if I'm in Google's boots in mind here, is how do you get proven developers on board with a completely unproven ecosystem? I'm really not sure. I guess the only way you could do it is by offering some serious wages well above what anyone else would realistically pay, pour your cash into that, and build up your own studios, because acquisitions aren't going to go well. If you try to forcefully acquire, you could forcefully acquire some studios, but the problem is, in the event of a hostile takeover, the staff are simply going to leave. They'll quit, and you'll have a shell of a company at that point to work with. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying Google would have a big struggle, especially because it doesn't even sound like they're targeting a regular console. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but it sounds like they're targeting more of a streaming box.
Yeah, and that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they're trying to make a streaming console, which with Google's cloud, like same thing with Microsoft has the cloud initiative they have and everything else. They could pull it off. But the thing is there's also a stigma, and we've seen it in the gaming community as well. There's still this stigma about digital games as a whole. Nonetheless, streaming games. Come on. Who here is ragged on PSN for streaming games?
I remember trying it out for the first time a long time ago and playing some games. Oh, yeah, this should be good. And the quality was horrible. It wasn't fun to use, and the price that it's being used for is not worth it. So they really need to, if they make a streaming device, a streaming console, they really got to make it have a worthwhile package for someone to really buy it in the first place. But like you said earlier, Sam, they kind of have to beat Microsoft to the punch now, because there's only a few years left before theoretically the next gen consoles come out, right? And if Microsoft really is focusing, and like Phil Spencer said, he wants to also reach a 4 billion person market, but not just that, have console quality streaming to anywhere you want to play. So if you want it on your phone, you want console quality gaming on your phone, that's what he's trying to achieve. You really got to try and compete with that and put out something potentially on par or better in order to draw in a large enough crowd to be sustainable for the near future. And not just that, but you also have to have the game catalog to go along with it too. So what is it like? What's going to happen? There's a lot that has to happen.
I want to hound that point. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you mind if I dive in on something here? But the thing is, it's like as much as Microsoft, Google's cloud initiative, their cloud division is behind Amazon and Microsoft's. So they're already at a disadvantage there. They have Google Fiber, but the problem is I can name the cities that Google Fiber is available in like 30 seconds flat. Okay, so it's just a handful of
Azure, like Microsoft Azure. How many countries is that in, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, they're not just taking on Microsoft here. They've got Nintendo and Sony, who both have an incredible legion, a veritable army of first-party studios and proven IPs to work with here. and Google would need to create fresh content or acquire new content or get third parties on board. And they could absolutely get some third parties on board, but without the bigger ones like EA or Activision, that's going to be extremely difficult. And I don't know about you guys, but the idea of streamed Call of Duty isn't sitting well with me. Not with today's lag problems.
Streaming games on peer-to-peer servers sounds like a great time.
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I mean, they still haven't confirmed that, but that's another question. That's another debate altogether. So the point here is, I'm not saying Google can't do it, but they have a lot of issues that they would need a multi-pronged approach to deal with.
Yeah.
Now, again, that doesn't mean it's impossible. Here's another thing we're not addressing. Go back and scroll through the history of the console wars, the chronicles of the wars, if you will, all right? Or just browse Wikipedia is what I'm saying. Here's the thing. Every time a competitor has come into the video game market and stayed for good, it was a combination of two different things. Well, it was three different things that happened, actually. One, they were willing to sink in a ton of money and take a loss their first go-round, like Microsoft. The first Xbox, they lost a lot of money, didn't even remotely come close to the PS2's numbers, didn't beat the GameCube, but they built a cult following. They did get a handful of people, particularly in the US and the UK, who were like, wait a minute, maybe we're onto something here. All right?
True.
Two, you've got something where the competitors in these situations where a newcomer comes into the console market and takes off like wildfire, the competitors mess up seriously. When Sony entered the market with the original PlayStation, they capitalized on the Nintendo 64. We all remember how the Nintendo 64 read games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but guess what didn't? The PlayStation, the Sony PlayStation as it was called when it released in the early 90s, that thing used CD-ROMs.
Yeah,
which was a big deal.
Difference.
That was a ridiculously big deal. It was the first console to use disc, and game developers were like, "Well, heck yeah, we'll just jump on this." Like Square Enix, with Final Fantasy VII, which was a huge deal. Hold on, I just want to grind this out a little bit more here. Or if you look at how Microsoft capitalized on the PS3's disastrous launch, and they were able to get a year's head start in addition to that. Or the fact that when Nintendo originally entered the market, they had the crash of 1983, so all their competitors had been wiped out. Nintendo had a clean slate to work with to enter the field here and develop themselves. The point I'm making is, and I know this is very long-winded, so I'll try and wrap it up. Every time a competitor has come into the market and stayed for good, so we got the top three that we got right now, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, it was because every single one of them was either willing to take a loss or capitalized on disastrous mistakes of their competitors, or C, option 3, a combination of the two, combination of both of the above. So anyways, that's my little rant done, because honestly, I don't see Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo making that gigantic of a disastrous mistake going into next gen.
No, definitely not. Like kind of like how earlier we were talking about the Nintendo Switch and all that fun stuff, like the PS5 and next Xbox are going to be two really substantial, heavy-duty performing machines. Nintendo, I think, really needs to step it up a little bit and also go back to being a home console, a pure home console, but also beef up the hardware a little bit more too. But like, if Google really wants to enter the gaming space, they really got to take these big three companies on hard, and they really need to do it in a big way too. If they don't, they're not gonna get a foot in, I don't think.
See, they've got to do something better than PlayStation, Xbox, and
unique too. They gotta really stand
and that's
out.
the thing is, like, with the original Xbox, you got Xbox Live that came along with it. That was different for the time period. Mm-hmm. Microsoft brought a whole different set of features that people are like, "Whoa, what's this?" It had that like interest factor, like Sam said, it didn't outperform the GameCube, it didn't outperform the PlayStation 2, not even remotely close, because PlayStation 2 was a juggernaut for that generation. Yeah. But they created something that was unique and that worked for them. Even if you look at the success of the Nintendo Switch right now, It's one of the first successful hybrid consoles. It's one of the first ones where you can play it at home on your TV and then just go, and away you go on handheld. Like it's not without its fair share of issues that we've been seeing this week with third-party support and everything else, with quality and yada yada yada. But it has a unique features. You can buy a game, play it, and then literally take it on the go. Now, Sony tried to do that with the Vita, and does anyone remember when the Sony? What was the phone they were tried to sell with the PS4 at the start of this generation? I cannot remember the phone.
The Xperia? Remember. I can never remember the name of it. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
and by the way, I need to make a quick amendment to something I said. Evidently, I was wrong, and in lifetime sales, the Xbox did overtake the GameCube. I was confused about the first couple of years it was on the market, so my apologies there. I want to put up the correct information. But in terms of lifetime sales, the original Xbox did outpace the GameCube. Nonetheless, it still didn't even. We're talking about by a couple of million here. We're talking 24 million to 22 million. It didn't even remotely come close to the PS2's country. All right, so that's the point I was trying to make.
Okay. Yeah, no, the PS2 was an absolute juggernaut. But there's like every one of these manufacturers that did something hugely unique and you couldn't get anywhere else. Like Sam said with the PlayStation, like the Sony PlayStation, it was CD. It was one of those things that was like, wow, whoa. It was really unique and really cool. And it put their competitors a step backwards on everything else. So they were doing something different and better than everyone else was. But the thing is like, as far as like online services go, Xbox has pretty much got the service market cornered with Game Pass, EA Access, that kind of thing. PlayStation's got that first party exclusivity locked down. They've got some unique services on there too. Like, if they started making PS Now, like if they carry PS Now going forward, and you can download games and everything else, like if they start adding to the PS4 library when PS5 comes out, and they stick with that service might actually be good if they create downloads. That's a different topic altogether. But there's things PlayStation does way better than Microsoft does, and there's stuff Microsoft does that's way better than Sony. But there's not too much that Google can do different to really vary themselves from the company. Like even if you look at Nintendo, they don't try to compete with Xbox and PlayStation head on. They realize that their console is everyone's secondary console. There's very few people in the community that are sitting there going, yeah, my primary console where I buy all my games is my Nintendo Switch. Like I know like two guys.
The margin would be very, very small. I definitely think that
the margin of people that use Nintendo Switch as their primary console is a very, 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 very small margin. But a lot of people are picking them up because it's a great complement console. Oh, I'm playing this game. I need to go out though, so I can just take the Switch and away you go. The portability for that console is huge, and that's a huge part of the appeal. And that was the huge part of the appeal with the 3DS. But I don't see Google being able to do anything unique without having to sink a ton of money into it. And even then, even if you sink a ton of money into something, it doesn't mean it's going to be good.
Yeah, that's true.
And Google has a really bad, as we said previously, Google has a very bad track record for supporting things. They'll take it through the design stage.
Yeah, they have a graveyard of products that they haven't supported properly.
They're like what they are with products is what EA is with game studios.
Yeah, well, let's not go there, please. Visceral's death still hurts me. But in all seriousness, so looking at that as a developer, why would you agree to, bring your games over to that system as a third party, or even worse, go work at a first party studio, or allow yourself and your company to be bought by Google? How do you know that in 2.5, 3, 4 years, they're not just going to say, yeah, we're throwing in the towel. Goodbye.
Well, let's look at the facts. As Sam stated this before, most major studios, and I'm talking even like the AA studios, are usually owned by a publisher already. Bethesda owns a ton of studios, Activision owns a ton of studios, EA owns a ton of studios, and a lot of these companies all own a ton of studios, whether they're large, small. There's very few independent studios still that would be worth purchasing. And I don't mean that as a knock against indie studios, but in order for Google to sell a console, you can't sell a console off indie launch games. That just doesn't work.
No.
Like, no one's going to buy a $600 Google console because you picked up an indie team from France that does really cool, unique art games. Like, that's not going to move your console. You need a Halo, you need a God of War, you need a Mario, you need like that kind of thing. And I just don't see Google being able.
No, you don't need that. You don't need a neck. Sorry.
Yeah, don't need that. But the thing is like, it'd be very hard for them to break in. There'd be a lot of studios just straight up wouldn't trust Google. You just have to look at the companies they've bought. It's the same track record Microsoft. Microsoft and Google have horrible track records for when they buy stuff. All you have to look at is like I'm not talking necessarily the Xbox division, but like look at Microsoft with like Skype.
Yeah, Microsoft's Skype and things like that. Although there's actually a big update for that coming that looks like it'll turn things around. But yes, you're right. They have a long way to go in terms of changing their reputation.
HoloLens needs to stay. HoloLens needs to become a reality. That thing's so cool. I love that piece of tech that they're making. Sorry. I just think it's the coolest thing. If they drop that.
I'm a fan of it as well. It's unique and everything. I'll just never be able to afford one.
I know. That's the worst person.
I think with Google too is the problem is like you see it with the mid-gen refreshes, like price point is going to be an issue as well. Like Sony and Microsoft have struck deals with hardware developers. Like AMD has played both sides of that field very clearly over the years on working on stuff with Microsoft, working on stuff with PlayStation and everything else. Google needs one of those relationships because if not, if they're paying full like price for hardware, that's going to drive the price point of the console up, and no one except for serious collectors is going to go drop $700 on I'm not going to say a prototype, but first off Google console.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing. It's like there's no trust from the community, and like you also got to look at like what the game like gamers are made up of. A lot of hardcore gamers that would buy a Google console are huge followers of social media and like content creators. And what do content creators constantly say about Google? Nothing good.
Nothing.
Right? So they've got a huge disadvantage. And like Google could probably not even give these consoles away for free to people that do YouTube for a living. But that's the thing. Is like there's too much of an uphill battle, and I don't see Google being committed enough to it. I think what people are seeing is it's the same thing. The name escapes me. The head of Microsoft right now, Satya
Nadella.
Thank you. Always mispronounce it. I feel like a jerk. He said he's put a big focus into the game industry as a whole because he thinks Xbox brand has a huge opportunity to be part of a dominating force in the games industry. So with Microsoft saying, hey, the games industry is something that can be profitable and should be looked into, I think Google's just saying they're going, maybe we can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see more of it because if people are seeing what Microsoft is doing, I'm not discrediting Sony as a whole because like Sony's done amazing things for the video game industry, but that's their primary source of income. Like Microsoft is Windows, like that's what made Microsoft, right? And Sony, what everyone remembers Sony for, at least what I do, is the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I mean, they've had other products, but they've killed most of them off.
Yeah, the Walkman. I remember the Walkman. That was a great time.
TVs. Yeah,
the TVs. They had some great stuff, but they had to shut a lot of that down and like focusing on the gaming division was probably the smartest thing they did.
By far.
It saved the company majorly, and I'm really happy because I honestly couldn't imagine a Gamescape where we don't have a PlayStation console anymore. It just doesn't feel right. It's the same thing as like I'm like the largest trash talker about Nintendo in the history of mankind, but I would never, ever want to see them stop being in the console market. They're such a key component of video games to me just because of like growing up. I still shed a tear the fact that Sega doesn't make consoles anymore.
Can only imagine what it would be like today if they actually made one.
Could you imagine? You imagine if you had to deal with 4 consoles, all of them with good exclusives?
No, no. That's too much money.
Yeah, that's a world we don't want to live in.
There's not enough time already.
Yeah. Good Lord.
There's just not.
So that's kind of where it's sitting right now. And there, like I said, there's a lot of companies that are kind of looking into like some companies are looking to get back. Like everyone's seen the Atari rumors and all that stuff. That's a bit of a cluster storm. But it'll definitely be interesting to see what Google does. I don't think they're making a move anytime soon, though. I don't like.
No, they'll probably try and coincide with next gen, just like Sony and Microsoft.
Yeah, like I don't see them making them. Like I don't even see them releasing something in 2020. I see them because there's a lot of legwork. Because like even as Sam said, if you have to recruit studios, that means you got to develop those games, and you're not going to pull first party Miracle out of nowhere in 2 years or less than 2 years. It just doesn't work.
Not the quality ones, anyways.
Yeah, like you're not gonna just like pull a 343 or a Sony Santa Monica just randomly out of nowhere. Those studios don't just like sit around and wait for you to pay the money. Like that's not how that works.
No, they don't.
That takes years for those studios to get the talent, get the teamwork, get it. It's such a process. That's why video games. I will always say video games are an art, is because there's so much that goes into it.
Take a long time. If you want to put out something good, they take like years to make.
Like
in a good scenario.
Yeah, and like look at it as a whole. Like with like. Just use like Sony Santa Monica as a perfect example. They had the failure that sci-fi IP, which to this day I'm sad didn't get made because I really thought they could do something great with that. It's a shame it didn't pan out the way it should have. But
Sony was willing to take a $100 million loss on that. Yeah, they were willing to just bite the bullet and say, "Okay."
They bit the bullet. They kept the studio. They went here, and like Corey repitched God of War to them. I think the initial pitch failed, and he had to repitch it. And then on the repitch, he nailed it, luckily. And 5 hard years later, they created probably what's going to be one of the best-selling games of this year and probably one of the most memorable games of the PS4.
Definitely probably easily the most standout game for this generation, at least one of them for sure.
It was one of the few games, and like I reviewed it on the site, but one thing that with God of War is there's everything about that game was perfect for me. The visuals were great, the story was great, the audio was amazing, the graphics were insane. It packaged everything. You could tell it was a passion project. And you can't just pull passion projects out of nowhere. Just to bring it back to the Google thing, you can't pull games like The Witcher 3, God of War, Halo, Uncharted. Those games don't just come out of nowhere. Even Uncharted had its speed bumps to its great success. Like Uncharted 1 to this day, I will maintain was a very underwhelming game. As a whole, it was a cover-based action shooter that was kind of fun. But Uncharted 2 really is when Naughty Dog hit its stride, and it took a game to do that. And like, even with that, Uncharted franchise is like one of the premier Sony studios. So like Google, if they're trying to launch a new console, they can't have a growing game as a launch title. They can't afford to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, even if you look at how they launched the original Xbox, Sam can attest to this. Like, how much money did Xbox have to shell out for Japanese support on that OG Xbox?
I don't think there actually is an official number, but it was hefty. It was not pocket change, even for an emerging Microsoft at the time.
Well, you also got to look at some of the games they had exclusive at that point. You had things like Jade Empire from BioWare was exclusive. I came to PC as well, but it's the same thing as like the Knights of the Old Republic. Those games all were on OG Xbox, and that would have cost a pretty penny to get those on there. And like the Japanese support on the original Xbox was insane, and that just doesn't come out of nowhere, especially when you're a first-time console maker. So Sony would have, or not Sony, Google would literally have to do that same style of bite the bullet, spend a ton of money, and hope it works out. But they've got to be consistent with it. They can't just be like, well, this bombed after 2 years. All the people that support us are stuck with this console that isn't worth supporting anymore. They've got to stick it out.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that pretty much covers it. We'll obviously cover this again down the road. There's not a lot of facts to go with this one, unfortunately.
Yes,
but
this is all speculation right now at this time.
It's all speculation. I think at the end of the day, Google has the pocketbook to do it, but do they have the know-how of the industry to do it? They would almost, if Google is to make a video game industry, they need to, like, if they want to break into the video game industry, they need to hire someone that's been in the industry for a long time to run their division. Like they need someone that would know the industry inside and out and how it works now.
But also has been successful too.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying this will ever happen, but like you ever want to bring someone on as an advisor on how to sell a new console, Seamus Blackley would definitely be a good place to start.
Yeah, that's true.
And like there was a lot of guys that worked really hard to get Xbox to where it was. Like you look at Peter Moore's aggressive business tactics, which was basically, I'll throw a pocketbook at you until you make a game for me.
Pretty much. He had a reputation as a bulldog.
And it worked for him though. And like GTA on Xbox stage at E3, like right there. Like seeing like it was a huge deal. Like he did a lot of things for that company. And if Google wants to break into the game industry, they need their own Peter Moore, essentially. They need someone that's got the Google checkbook and can just lay it down. Now, whether or not that happens, we'll just have to wait and see. So now on to another interesting topic. So PUBG Corporation, as we know, was suing Epic Games. Now, the important key point to this is that they were suing them in Korea. This was a South Korean lawsuit. This was not taking place in North America. So PUBG,
I feel like that's an important point that gets lost quite a bit.
It was actually funny because when I decided to use this as a topic, I was reading online a lot of the articles that people did on this, and a lot of people left out the details about it being in Korea. Because they have different copyright laws in South Korea. They actually have stricter copyright laws in Korea than we do here in North America, which is probably why PUBG Corp went after Epic Games in Korea, because A, it's their home territory, and B, stricter copyright laws would make the lawsuit a lot easier than being in North America, because let's face it, you can pretty much throw fair use onto anything in North America and get away with it. So PUBG Corp was suing Epic Games for copyright infringement and stolen assets as well was in the details. But all of a sudden, earlier this week, PUBG Corp dropped the lawsuit, sending a letter of withdrawal to Epic Games of their lawsuit. And when asked for questions in regards to why they dropped the lawsuit, there was no comment. And Brendan Green, as of now, still has not made any comments on the situation. So, what do you guys think? Like, what do you guys think? Because we didn't talk about this because we didn't have a show last week. What do you guys think about the lawsuit that PUBG Corp launched against Epic Games? Do you think they had a leg to stand on, or do you think Fortnite's varied enough from PUBG that they can kind of, it's acceptable? Like, what are you guys' thoughts on
it? See, the thing is, it's like, for them to have a case, there would have to be other things going on that we don't know about, like stolen code or, proof of Epic throttling updates and things like that, or throttling the engine usage, or throttling them getting the latest version of the engine, things like that. I feel like, though, that isn't why the case was shut down. I don't think it was because they didn't have a case. I think it's because Tencent is involved, and Tencent has a stake in both companies.
Yeah.
a very big stake in both companies.
Yeah, well, as it sits right now, Tencent is a major owner of PUBG Corp. I think it's like in the 80% range. And Tencent owns 46% of Epic Games.
Exactly. So it's like if they have a controlling interest in PUBG Core and more than a healthy interest in Epic, it would be in their best interest to shut this nonsense down, because otherwise they'd almost be suing themselves.
Yeah.
Essentially. Now there's three general consensuses on what happened here. Number one is that Epic Games bent the knee because there is some glaring similarities. And that this was settled out of court with an insane cash load. Option B was Tencent stepped in and went, whoa, 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 you guys aren't doing this. Because there was also a Korean board that investigated into it because there was someone made accusations in regards to Tencent trying to what's the word here? It's not money laundering, but they were trying to do a transference of money from Epic Games to PUBG Corp because they own both, and they were trying to transfer money across. And by suing themselves, there was a Korean business board had to look into the issue because it was considered could lead to possible black market insinuations. Basically, what they were saying is they were accusing Tencent of being a slimy business, which Tencent has a huge reputation for doing sneaky, underhanded things in the video game corporation field of things. So that was a huge factor into it as well. But the big reason that they say that PUBG Corp might have dropped the lawsuit is because, technically speaking, Epic Games could pull Unreal Engine 4 out from under them, and then PUBG doesn't have an engine. Because technically Epic Games would have to license the engine to them. So if they revoke the license, PUBG, the whole game, would be nothing.
Yeah, that's true. And Fortnite's a pretty big juggernaut already, too. Like, for a free-to-play game, it's like, I'll be honest here. It took on PUBG, it overcame PUBG, and it just dominated the landscape after that, like, almost 1 year time frame from when PUBG first came out in early access on PC. The amount of money that Fortnite makes, though, is absolutely insane. And like, how can you want to go up against something like that? In my mind, so you go, okay, yeah, you had a lawsuit like that, and like how you brought up, they have the Unreal Engine being used for PUBG and all that fun stuff, and it's like Fortnite's just doing so much better. And if Tencent had control in both these companies, or they do have control in both these companies, they're gonna be like, you know what, you're gonna leave these guys alone, and you're gonna sit there nice and quiet, and you're just gonna basically shut up. That's kind of, I think, what happened.
Well, see, at the end of the day, it's why I laugh, is because like people are like, oh, well, Fortnite's better, PUBG's better. It doesn't matter which one you think's better. Tencent's making money hand over fist, both
insane amounts. Like
I think I saw on Twitter yesterday, someone said that like Fortnite made like something like, I can't remember, it was like almost $1 billion in microtransactions or something. It was something insane. They make a month in like microtransaction sales, which is absolutely insane. It's true. Yeah. Like I actually sat down and played it last night because I figured if we were going to talk about it a bit, I should have some experience with it. And everybody, I swear, has all the custom skins.
They buy the season passes.
Yeah, buying the season passes and everything else. Like, it's the only game that sells you multiple, like a battle pass every couple of months. I'm like, that's smart. How they monetized it is going to be the model for free play games going forward. It's hard for me to side with PUBG Corp on this one. It's hard for me to side with any corporation when it comes to money, because they all have way more money than I'll ever have in my lifetime. But as a whole, it's hard to like. I just feel like the PUBG Corp could be spending their time on better things than suing Epic Games. Like, I can understand like that whole rumor about stolen code and things like that. I can understand why you would sue over those issues and everything else. Mm-hmm. But if you don't read the analysis like the in-depth analysis that some sites did, and you just look at it on paper, it just made PUBG Corp look bad suing Epic. It just looked awful. It was a horrible PR move because you have a game that isn't exactly the most optimized trying to sue one of the most optimized console games.
Right. What they need to be doing is taking the ton of money they've made, because they are still selling that game extremely well. It's still doing extremely well on Xbox and Steam. What they need to be doing is expanding their studio and hiring more experienced devs who have, lots of talent with Unreal Engine 4, and optimizing that game and adding new stuff to it.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I feel like part of the reason why PUBG isn't fully optimized to its fullest yet, I feel it's like, I don't want to be rude when I say this, but I feel like it's part of it is Brendan Green's inexperience as a whole, because I think this game blew up a lot faster than anyone could have anticipated, and he's got all that money now. I don't think he 100%, like, as a whole, like, the company doesn't seem to understand how to best gear it to what they need to do, because we've seen it like with some of the like anti-cheating systems they've put in place that actually banned out legitimate players and everything else, right? It's they've done some really boneheaded stuff that's gotten them some bad PR, and they haven't really done anything to correct those moves. And it just kind of rings like, it just rubs some people the wrong way, and it makes Fortnite that much easier for Epic to move, because Fortnite is insanely well optimized because Epic owns Unreal Engine. They know how to make it perfect. Fortnite was in development for what, 5-6 years? So they just slapped a battle royale mode together on it, and bada boom, bada bing, it runs like absolutely amazing. I will say that is like my experience with Fortnite last night. That game is smooth as butter.
Yes. it plays really nicely.
It plays really tight.
And then you go to PUBG and you go, oh.
Yeah, like the gunplay in Fortnite is so tight. And I will give them credit to the moon and back for that, and how well the game runs and everything else. I think that should definitely be the focus for PUBG going forward, is they need to get Unreal, like, it's Unreal Engine. I understand why PUBG doesn't run the best on consoles. It's because it's a very CPU heavy build.
Yeah. And
consoles have very weak CPUs. But at the same time, I still think I just still think that target for PUBG should have been 1080 60 instead of trying to push the 4K push on the One X. I still will say that from the rooftop, because I would rather it be smooth and buttery than 4K and kind of choppy.
Yeah, I agree. Because in games like that, frames per second definitely matter. Definitely. If you go from 30 to 60, your response time and everything like that, coming from playing a lot of competitive FPS a long time ago, it really, really, really matters.
Yeah.
Like that fraction of a second of a frame to be on target to get that shut off just in time, in comparison to the reaction time that goes along with 30 FPS, is important.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And to answer Tommy's question there in the chat, there was no public settlement, though when questioned further about whether or not there was a settlement, both PUBG Corp and Epic Games released the same thing of, we would not like to comment on this issue at this time, making me think there was probably a settlement. To instead of dragging out a nasty court case, they just settled out of court, and we'll never hear anything about it. But at the end of the day, Epic Games and PUBG Corp are sitting on mountains and mountains of money right now. Like, like PUBG hit what, 50 million copies between PC and Xbox?
It's hit 50 million. Yep, 50 million. And it's still charting on MPD on Xbox every month.
400 million players.
Yeah, 400 million players across PC, mobile.
Fortnite's at 125
really gives
million.
You that really gives you an idea of how much the mobile market plays into that, though.
Huge. It was smart for Tencent to go mobile for PUBG.
Tencent's just they know they know how to make money.
Yeah, not just that,
I'm not a huge fan of them, and I was I stood up and applauded when I heard Ubisoft managed to buy back their shares from Tencent.
I know. Oh,
that was a great moment for them, and I'm glad that we're able to do that and to be able to make the games they want to make. That's
smart with that move.
But Tencent's part of the industry. They're going to keep buying stuff because they seem to just have empty checks to throw around whenever, and more companies will fall into that because it's expensive to make games now. So that kind of wraps up that topic. That was all we had planned for tonight, really. I really thought that Google topic would be more, but there's not really a lot of information that we can.
We can only speculate so much too, right?
It's all speculation at this point. That's the issue.
Yeah, I was going to say the main issue is it's all speculation at this point. There's no ironclad information on this. So what we can talk about is sorry, my wife's in the background. We can talk about maybe we'll talk about Nintendo Switch ports. Let's do this. Let's talk about this.
Why?
Oh boy,
this is gonna come up on. This actually ties into a website piece that just went live on Tick Games Network, actually, about a possible 3DS successor as well. So
yeah, that's right.
Really good piece by Jason, actually. So the Nintendo Switch, as we know, is a hybrid console that has done it does a fantastic job of playing its first-party games and is very well known for its support of the indie games. And indie games have done insanely well on the Nintendo Switch. I think it was Hollow Knight earlier this week. Actually, it did more sales this week in Nintendo Switch than it had done Lifetime prior to that. So that's insane.
Wow, that's actually really impressive.
So like the Nintendo Switch is bringing different games to different people that may not have bought these games originally because it's handheld, it's portability, it's convenience, it's a good mix of hardcore and casual all in one. But this week, thanks to a Digital Foundry analysis, we're starting to see power issues. And now Sam's going to remember this. Now, Sam, you remember when it was called the Nintendo NX?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You remember when it was going to be the next 4K console? It was going to be the first 4K console. It was going to be handheld at 4K. Remember those dreams? Well,
no, because I never believed them, but
oh, man. I read a lot of Reddit back in the day, okay? But so that dream is very far and dead at this point. So Wolfenstein 2, after Digital Foundry analysis, it has half the frames of the other console versions, which is kind of the reduced frame rate is something we all kind of grown to expect with Nintendo Switch ports as a general rule of thumb. But what was the frame rate of Wolfenstein 2 on regular consoles? Wasn't it 60?
Yeah, it was 60 FPS. Yep.
Yeah, so Wolfenstein 2 is 30 FPS most of the time, according to Digital Foundry analysis. It has drops. And unfortunately, it also features something we don't see very often anymore, and that's resolution drops. So Wolfenstein 2 port on Nintendo Switch can drop to 360p for continuous sections, especially during dense enemy combat, which if anyone's played Wolfenstein 2, there is a lot of dense enemy combat.
It gets intense.
But 360p, guys, like that takes us back to what? When was 360p the standard on consoles?
It wasn't.
Exactly.
Or at the very, 480p was kind of what the Xbox ran at. It ran at higher resolutions than the PS2 or the GameCube, but still, that gives you an idea of what kind of pixels we're talking about here. And pixels aren't everything, but
the thing is I really don't think like I was one of those people. I will admit when they first announced the Nintendo Switch, I was like, they need to have third-party support for this. They need third-party support to fill out their library. And I'm not gonna lie, if the third-party support's gonna look like that,
it's not gonna work out so well. They really got to stick more so the indies like Hollow Knight and
yeah, like the indies are doing good, and I think a lot of indies need to go Nintendo Switch. If you're an indie developer, put your game on Switch.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard it is to port it over. Like, I know there's difficulties to that, but I would definitely think of, if I was an indie developer, I would almost launch first on Switch. I'd do like Switch PC launch initially.
I mean, they've seen incredible success.
Yeah,
definitely.
So, and that's what I mean is like the PC and Switch seem to be a good combination of people that buy indie games. And I'm not saying PlayStation guys and Xbox guys don't buy indie games. I'm just saying that because of Nintendo's gaps in software, I'm not saying that they have a lack of software. I hate how I've put a disclaimer after everything I say. But in between those gaps, indie games do a good job of filling out your software lineup. We see it. Xbox does it with ID Xbox. PlayStation did it with a ton of great games. House Marquee has done a fantastic job of filling out indie games on the PS4, and things like that. So, like, indie games are a huge part of that. But the thing is like, and what we see on social media, like I see petitions on a regular basis. We need Assassin's Creed Odyssey on the Switch. Like, do you want it to run like a GIF?
Preferably not. I don't know, man. I couldn't play it. I just going from what we have now to something like that. It's like you could run it on an emulator on a PC and probably have a better quality.
Well, we even saw it with Resident Evil 7, where that was streamed to the Nintendo Switch.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And as far as I know, that was actually decent quality. I'm pretty sure. I never heard anything. I never saw any slander articles against it, so it must have ran somewhat decently.
That's true. Better than Wolfenstein so far.
Yeah. So maybe that's something they can look at going forward. Nintendo Switch's online systems are still up in the air, unfortunately. But it's just an interesting response, and how people respond to Nintendo is always super weird to me. Like, everyone remember when when Xbox One X was still Project Scorpio and PlayStation 4 was PS Neo. And everyone was like, well, they should have made these consoles good enough that we didn't have to upgrade 3 years into the generation. That was the general consensus amongst everyone. Now, the general consensus with the Switch is they're like, they should just make a new Switch.
Oh, boy.
I'm sitting there going,
that's not going to happen. The Switch is here to stay, at least for a couple of years.
Because right now, as it's what it's looking like is that Nintendo isn't abandoning their handhelds, and it looks like that they will be continuing to make their handhelds as well as the Nintendo Switch, which to me seems redundant. I would almost prefer to see them put all their support that they put into the 3DS, put that on the Switch. Because you would sell those like crazy if you had, like, there's so many great games on the 3DS that they could bring over to the Switch, and they would run amazing because the Switch is more powerful than the 3DS. It feels like a no-brainer to me. I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot if they have both. Because it's like, yeah, I can play Mario Odyssey on my Switch, but I can play all these other games that are only available on the 3DS. And having 3DS exclusives that aren't on the Switch just annoys the living hell out of me. It was the same thing when the Wii U was in that big drought. They announced a Luigi's Mansion game, but it's only on 3DS. Consoles literally...
That's an ongoing problem, right? That's a really ongoing problem of games coming to the 3DS that aren't coming to the Switch, and it's like, why? That doesn't make any sense. At least to bring them to both, in theory, right? But
they probably look and run better on the Switch too, just a little bit more. a little bit more.
Just a little bit more. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like I understand why Nintendo doesn't want to drop the 3DS because it's been such it helped get them through the Wii U. Like I get that 100%. But with the direction they took the Switch, they're almost they're putting themselves in the foot with this.
Yeah.
And they need to figure out what their stance is going to be going forward. Like people will always buy Nintendo handhelds. Nintendo's handhelds are legendary. I think I've owned every Nintendo handheld. I had the Game Boy Color. I didn't have the original Game Boy. I had the Game Boy Color. I had the Game Boy Advance. I had the flip one, which was like the coolest thing in the world, the Game Boy SP. That thing was amazing.
I think I got one in the house somewhere.
I didn't have a DS, and I bought a 2DS for one game, I think. And I'm not gonna lie, I almost bought another 2DS when Detective Pikachu came out, but my wife talked some sense into me. Thank God.
That's a good wife.
But yeah, I just feel like if third party isn't performing well, like the actual game isn't performing well, then you need to look at alternatives. I think without going too much into an article I'm working on, I think Nintendo needs to look into doing group projects. I know that sounds like a really bad school term, but like their relationship with Ubisoft is an example of, oh, well, we'll do a Mario Rabbids crossover, and then you have Star Fox being in that game that Ubisoft is making. Starlink?
Yep. Yeah,
Starlink. So, a little bit of crossovers here, a little bit of crossovers there. It benefits both companies. It's great fan service. Not to mention the fact, like, really just take a moment and appreciate how good of a game Mario Rabbids is. And I never thought that I would see like an XCOM style Mario game that did so well. It's such a weird crossover to like Rabbids and Mario games are so different, and then cross it over and be like,
loved it,
and be like, we should make a real-time turn-based strategy game out of this. Like whoever made that idea in the boardroom is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need more like that. And I would love to see more crossovers with Nintendo. I am still one of those people that sit there and go, I want to see Banjo in Smash.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you know what the great thing is Microsoft is right on board there with you. Phil is in public like, hey, we have no problems with Banjo being in Smash. So
you know what, and that people can like without touching on the crossplay thing because I'm not going near that with 10 football. Without touching on that, I love Nintendo's relationship with Microsoft right now for the simple reason is there's a couple of rare titles that were locked away on N64 that were great. There's great relationships that can be built on that. Like, no, Mario Odyssey is never coming to Xbox. Like.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff is never going to happen. No. But those like little fan service crossovers, like I squealed like a girl when Snake came to Smash originally. I was like, oh my god, I can play a Metal Gear Solid character in Smash. That was like the coolest thing ever, right? And like Soul Calibur is another game that did fan service entries really well. Like I know Sam's getting Soul Calibur 6 just because Gerald's in it. Like it's a no-brainer. Gonna happen.
Yeah, but I mean, even if it wasn't, it's a great game though. I played it.
But that's what I mean. It's like when you do fan service and you put a great game behind it as well.
Of course. Make no mistake. Like, this was hilarious on Reset Era. There was a thread about newcomers. Are you interested in getting Soul Calibur 6? And everyone kept on coming in and going, yeah. And then someone else come in and said, the number of dudes with Geralt avatars coming in here and saying they're interested now is the best argument for representation in gaming I've ever seen in my life.
Now, it's pure speculation. You know what would be, I think, the coolest cross-port thing ever would be bringing just this one game to Xbox for crossplay purposes would be Smash Bros. Can you imagine what that would be like and how the fan reactions on both sides would be? Crossplay with Xbox players on Switch with Super Smash Bros. Yeah, I'd be all over that.
I'm just all over the potential relationship building. I'm one of those people that like if I can get more crossovers of my favorite things, I will nerd out like hardcore. Like
Well, it's a cool thing. They're two huge brands, and you just have the idea like, oh, well, what if this could happen? What if this could happen? If they really end up truly building on that relationship, it's cool.
Like, look me in the face and tell me you don't want Baldur and Kratos in like Soul Calibur or Smash Bros. Like, you cannot look
fun. That'd be fun.
You can't.
Kratos was actually in Mortal Kombat 9, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
I thought so. Yeah. So I mean, things like that have happened in the past, but we need to get more of them.
more meaningful fan service. Damn it.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. There's a thin line between like overselling fan service and then like having like actual like good fan service. I always find Nintendo always hits that perfect balance on this is really cool, but it doesn't like destroy what you love. Like, perfect example of like one of the worst like features or crossovers I ever remember was Yoda in Soul Calibur.
Wait, was it actually platform specific? It was like Xbox 360 got Yoda and PlayStation 3 got Darth Vader.
Yeah, PS3 got Darth Vader. Yoda was on Xbox 360. It was color coordinated and bugged the hell out of me. Xbox got the green guy. Darth Vader was the black one for PS3. I remember the bundles. I just sat there and went, damn it, I just want both. And then I realized that Yoda had really stupid hitboxes that my friends would always exploit, and it was awful. Okay? There was many broken controllers from that.
No, I don't. I can see it. I can see it.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what kind of things we can see going forward. I just want to gush about Smash Brothers now, but I can't do it. That lineup for that game just.
It's a lot of characters and it's a lot of variety too. Not just that, but there's going to be esports based on it too, and those are going to be one hell of a matches to watch because some of those pro players actually like professionally play Smash Bros. Oh man, half the time they don't even touch the ground and they're always in the air, and I don't get it because I used to play the crap out of that game for years on the N64 with my other 3 brothers because there'll be 4 of us. 4 brothers all battling it out on Smash Bros. And like I thought I was good. Oh man.
Yeah, Smash Bros. Like the 4-player chaos, or even better yet, the 8-player chaos. It's like that's going to push Switch. Make no mistake. I mean, I have my questions about Nintendo's exclusive library, but come December, which actually, now that I think about it, is a much later release date than I'd like. It's a little odd. I was thinking it would be September or November, but it is what it is. When that thing arrives, it's going to be fantastic. That's going to be like a household staple, no question.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's one of those games that you just kind of have to get because it's just truly organically fun.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And like, let's see here. Well, I think Nick just lagged out for a second, so while we wait on him to come back, you know, I really just want to take a moment to say, and I'm sure other people have said it, but Smash Bros. Is doing fan service the right way. I mean, I know Nintendo did a deep dive. They did a real deep dive at E3, and their show was pretty much 2/3 Smash, but bringing back every single Smash character and all these alternate versions and finally adding Ridley for the first time, like that is how you do it. That's how you do fan service. And fan service like that is a very good thing because it rewards people.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. Like, hey, you guys have been fans for this long. You've been asking for all of this. You know what? We'll just... Here you go. Here's what you've been asking for after all this time. And you go, yes! Finally!
Exactly.
I've been waiting 15 years.
I know it's not likely to ever happen, but I would love to see something crazy like Master Chief in Smash Bros. And Samus in Killer Instinct.
So cool.
I know that's very unlikely to happen. That's very unlikely to happen.
Can you imagine,
it would be so cool.
Master Chief and Atriox or something like that, and Soul Calibur too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be crazy as well. Although I think the days of like console exclusive characters in multi-platform games are over. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like something like that, like those days are kind of behind us. I don't know. I mean, even the Star Wars characters, like with Yoda on the 360 version, Darth Vader on the PS3, they were only timed exclusives. And they were used in the advertising. Like you had the option, I think, of purchasing Darth Vader on the 360 and Yoda on the PS3. So it's not like you were locked away. And I feel like I don't know. I feel like companies have moved away from that idea. I feel like companies, for the most part, have gotten to a point where it's like, nah, everyone gets the same thing, unless it's something absurd like the Destiny deal
Yeah,
that continues to go on.
I kind of wish they'd take those chances sometimes, though, because sometimes those crossovers like Mario Rabbids you didn't think would work out, but end up just being phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, and those. But that's not what I'm talking about. Like those crossovers, that's a different thing because that's a big game built from the ground up.
Yeah,
that's a collaboration.
True. That's true, actually. That's a good point. It's yeah, just character crossovers though for sure would be nice.
Yeah, I hear you. Cool. I'm all for crossovers as long as everybody can get them, or everyone, for the platform that the game is on. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm thinking like, I know it'd be not even a dream come true, like a 1 in a trillion chance of it ever happening. But it's just thinking about Smash Bros on the Xbox. That one thing alone would be, oh man, just so big to have. And I think a lot of people would praise that sort of brave thing to do too, to port a game like that over to a heavy competing console. But then you also think, what would Microsoft kind of port in return to the Switch? Like what do you think would be beneficial that's an Xbox exclusive for a Nintendo Switch fan base?
Yeah, see, I don't know. And that's why I'm talking about where I don't think those types of things are going to be happening, because when you get into stuff like that, into the nitty-gritty, it's difficult.
Yeah, difficult to say the least. It's just, oh man. It's interesting. Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, he rejoins us.
Sorry, apparently Steam needed an update. I needed to restart my computer instantly.
Yeah, I learned when I first got Steam. To turn that option off, because that happened to me when I was playing WoW. In a raid.
Literally, my computer at least restarts at least once every other day because it's like Steam needs an update. I'm like, damn it, guys.
Set for 4 a.m. Thank you.
All right. So I think we're pretty much done. Anyways,
we pretty much are, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like Rage and I talked for a little bit about just waxing eloquent about the fan service in Smash and character crossovers and things like that, but we pretty much talked that to death. So
perfect. Hashtag justice for Waluigi and all that jazz. No.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah, that's
okay. Okay. Sam's not a Waluigi guy. All right. You won't see Sam on the next episode. Let's see how it is. You and John can go sit in your hate for Waluigi.
It's that mustache, man. It's creepy.
All right. So anyone that wants to be on the Gaming Perspective podcast, hopefully Eric's not a Waluigi hater. I got a message in there. Wario and Waluigi are better than Mario and Luigi. It's just facts.
Man, I don't know.
No, you better end this before we get into this.
Yeah, okay.
No.
All right. So I want to thank everyone for tuning into episode 14 of the Gaming Perspective podcast. Going to be a little bit of a special show I'm going to be doing later in the week. Gonna update you guys on Twitter and like that tomorrow with more details. And yeah, so thanks for tuning in to the Gaming Perspective podcast. We'll do our outros here. Sam, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Samuel Talbert, always in the exact same place. Happy to talk games, movies, TV, tech, stuff like that. You can find what I write on tickgamesnetwork.com, writing news, opinion pieces, and E3 impressions galore. I'm actually almost done. Unfortunately, I know it's been a fantastic ride there, but I've actually only got 4 more of those coming. And after that, I'll be doing some opinion pieces on the nature of these companies post E3.
Right on. I expect a great breakdown of Devolver Digital.
You can expect what you want.
I have high expectations, Sam.
Oh my goodness.
Jared, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me at Twitter at raidvirus_X and they can find me at tickgamesnetwork.com writing up pieces just like Sam. But not as good. Not as good. I'm getting there, but he's just too good.
You're getting there, dude.
Yeah.
Sam's Gandalf.
No.
You're like Sam, and I'm like Pippin. I'm just along for the ride here.
Oh,
Lord. All right.
Anchor can be Gimli. He's grumpy enough. All right. So that's been the Perspective podcast. I hope everyone has a fantastic night, and we'll catch you all next week.